Scorpio, hi, great to see you. This is your Scorpio June 2020 reading. Hi to the Scorpio subscribers. Fantastic to see you as always. Hey, listen, this month we're going to use the Thoth tarot deck, and it has a lot of really interesting esoteric imagery in it. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably point out a few of the salient features, as I find them, that jump out to me and that I think that you might find interesting. So let's go and see what there is. Now look, a lot of people ask me questions about myself and backstory on me. While I'm drawing these, there's a number of questions. I get hundreds and hundreds of questions, but some of these, they sort of boil down to, when did you become clairvoyant? I've always been clairvoyant. I was born that way, and ever since being a little boy, I just knew things, you know. And the Prince of Swords. When I was a student at college, a lady who was older than I was took me under her wing and put me through a number of her spiritual practices. Look, in the old days they'd call her a witch. I called her, or thought of her, as a very wise woman, and she was. When I was about 27, 28 years ago, it's 28 years ago now, the woman with whom I was in love, she died suddenly. I won't go into the reasons why. And it was as if the sun went out and the birds stopped singing. And of course I was consumed with grief. And then about 6 months later, there's the Queen of Swords. Yeah, well, that would be her. 6 months later, it was as if I had since birth, while I was praying, since birth had on a pair of very, very dark sunglasses, and then that day they were lifted from my eyes and I could at last see everything. See everything. And it made sense. I could see how things connected and how we are all connected, and see into the other realms. And I continue looking into the other realms because there's more to, well, in fact, it's infinite. You never stop looking and finding more and more treasures. So that's that. Do I work? No. I don't have a day job, let me put it that way, or a night job. There's the Wheel of Fortune, that's good for you. No, I haven't for a couple of decades really now. I just do spiritual work, and that's it. Healing. Let people know what's going on in their lives, comfort, telling people's future, and of course I can discern spirits. And so sometimes, because, you know, one of my hobbies is, and it's a course of study which I pursued, being evolutionary biology plus cosmology, quantum mechanics, philosophy. If any scientist or philosopher tells you that there is only what you see around you in matter, they are just wrong. I mean, I know, I've read all the books they've read, and I've done all the classes they've done, and they don't know what they're talking about. Children. Well, I am a father. Probably a fairly unusual father, I suppose. That's the Tower, incidentally. Fantastic card for you. Because it's children, all I will say is that I am a father and I have more than one child. And let's get on with this anyway. There's other questions there, and there's the Fool. Now, you don't want to hear about me. Let's talk about you and see what there is in store for you this month. Okay, let's see what these have to say for you, Scorpio. Now, I'm going to have a look at this card here first, who is the Prince of Swords. Now, this is an interesting thing. The prince here has a sword in one hand and a sickle in the other, and sits rather awkwardly in his chariot, being pulled by children, which looks similar to the prince himself. All of the characters in the picture have wings, representing the element of air. Yeah, very much a lot of air surrounding this card here. I think what we can say is that I'm getting very much a feeling here of Capricorn around you, or of Aquarius. Yeah, so Aquarius or Capricorn are going to be important to you, I think, during this month. But let's have a look at some of the symbology, shall we? First of all, the background itself. Well, it's chaotic and represents his mind, which has a lot of activity, but no definite plan. Wings represent the quality of air, as I just mentioned, and they have bubbles of air inside, representing air of air. And as the prince, he is air, and in the suit of swords is air, so I suppose that's where that comes around. Now, these winged fairies or children are kind of going irresponsibly in random directions. They are not pulling together, and so their efforts are wasted. The chariot is therefore easy to move, but difficult to progress in any kind of definite direction except by accident. This is a perfect example of his mind. A part of him is out of control at the moment. Now, the sword in the right hand refers to the creator of ideas. The sword cuts through the air, forming thoughts in the process, shaping the air into thoughts. And the sickle in his left hand, well, that is, for me, that's linked to Saturn, which rules the death card in the major arcana, and what he creates, he destroys, this prince. This is his process of thought. It's like somebody who creates a masterpiece, then destroys it only to produce something better. When this process works well, it creates very intelligent people. But in the Prince of Swords here, the process is not grounded in anything practical, and so what he creates really comes about. Now, there are some, as for this geometric figure that you see here within the green disc, that's there. Well, the figure has 8 sides, and that relates it to the number 8. And for me, mystically, I have associated with the number 8 an area of divine emanation prior to the emergence of matter from out of spirit, which is linked to Mercury, and Mercury is all about the intellect. So I think what we have here is someone who is very, very, very full of ideas, but the difficulty is in getting anything grounded, I think, here. So it's a person who's got, I think, really something of quite a developed intellect, someone who loves thinking, questioning, and philosophizing, really good at creating ideas quickly, but moves on from them without developing them. His intellect can prove draining to many who do not respond to conversations of an intellectual nature at the speed with which he communicates. I think he can be independent, private, difficult to get to know, may lack emotion, warmth, and empathy. And I think what this card can indicate is perhaps that now is a time that you need to kind of slow down and analyze your thoughts to see if you can gain something practical from them. I think there's some other changes going on within you at this time. Let's have a look at this card here. Well, this is the Tower, and this is really a symbol of purification through fire. And the planet Mars, which has been attributed to this card here, which I agree with incidentally, supplies this energy which leads to the destruction of our small self or limitation of consciousness. Now, I could see that little glyph of Mars there. There's another little symbol that's here as well. Let me just have a look at that. Oh, that is a biblical Hebrew letter, the letter Pei, which means mouth. And actually you can see in the bottom right here, this mouth. This is the mouth that is supplying the fire that's pouring out to destroy the tower. Yeah, there is also, I think, an association with a Roman god of the underworld associated with Hades, breathing fire. He is represented by the mouth as well, but I won't go into it. But here we have Mars, really the warrior planet in full attack mode as it goes to break down perceptions that we have about ourselves. If we look at some of the symbology on it here, we have the tower itself representing the limitations of our ego. That's part of consciousness which is trapped in form and lower consciousness, the mental, emotional, and physical bodies. The structure of identity that you have built up over your lifetime, in other words. But this is only a small part of who you are, and yet you may see it as the totality of who you are. And what this is saying is that this is a limitation of your consciousness that needs to be broken down. Now, there's a couple of other symbols here which are probably of some interest to you. Here is a snake, and here is a dove. Well, the dove is representative of love, passive love. The snake here, or serpent, is representative of love, but active love. What else is there here? Yeah, see, all of life is a process of reconciling back to unity, you know, and I'm referred to one of the Christian texts, the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, that says, "Think not that I come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword." So it's breaking down ego and our perception of it so that we may be illuminated. And this is why when the eye of Shiva, right, from Hinduism, Shiva is one of the members of the Hindu trinity, Brahma being the god who is the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer god, and Shiva, the destroyer. When he opens his eye, that is when things are destroyed. And the third eye talks about the destruction of the illusion of the material creation and the burning away of fire. Now, there are four figures falling from the tower here. You see them, they're painted black, which represents earth. I think this represents the process of letting go of the physical as our attachment to our old reality breaks down. Now, if you look at a sexual view of it, this is a reference maybe to a phallus. Yes. Change equals stability, as change provides the opportunity for growth, whereas inertia really equates with death. And I think what this card is doing is it is saying that, well, this card is saying that, look, there's energy coming into your life which is going to change your rigid structure, because your structure as it is incapable of flexibility and growth, and so it needs to be destroyed or broken down. Now, this is probably happening at a spiritual level, so it's not about your house burning down or anything like that, but this is going through you spiritually. It may even also be going through you subconsciously. I've seen that happen very often as well. It may be a time, well, to use the imagery of the card, it may well be a time of turmoil and destruction as you seek to understand how you could have been mistaken about a situation or a person which you now have to come to terms with. Emotions like anger, grief, depression, and not being able to eat or sleep may be affecting you as your current sense of security has been perhaps lost or badly shaken up, maybe even to the extent that you feel as if your comfortable world will never be the same again, but it will. And such situations can include things like relationship breakups, loss of a job, death of a loved one, or financial or health problems. However, the important message about the Tower card is that with the destruction of the old comes the new, and you can eventually and will eventually look at life in a much more meaningful way, which makes you wiser. So it provides you with an opportunity for growth that will push you forward, and this is the energy which is coming through at the moment. Because, gee, isn't it interesting, this Wheel of Fortune is here as well, and this is not a dissimilar theme. You know, this is really a picture which talks about the mechanism of how the universe works. Notice there are 10 spokes in the wheel, and they are spinning counterclockwise, which is bringing as a result these vortexes of energy. You see them in the lilac here? These 10 plumes of energy, like a whirlpool almost. Let's have a look here. We've got what's down the bottom here. Well, there's the attribution of the planet Jupiter to the card, and this is another one of those biblical Hebrew letters, and this one is Kaf, and it means palm of the hand. So if you can imagine the palm of the hand on the wheel, it means that you basically create your own destiny. The palm of the hand also can contain your destiny, I've found in palmistry, because I can often see the imprint of the life path on the soul. Now, Jupiter here is associated with growth, expansion, and good luck, and it is known in astrology as the great benefic. A couple of other things quickly we might look at. The 5-pointed stars that are up here. Well, every woman and every man is a star. Some stars are dark, others bright, representing different fortunes, but there is a balance in them, which indicates that there is actually harmony in the universe itself. Now, this 10-pointed star, which is at the top of the wheel here, represents for me mystically the Earth, and this is also mirrored, if you like, by the star that's in the center of the wheel there, which says, as above, so below. It's a Hermetic saying, which can be taken in a number of ways, I suppose, but really what it is saying for me is that the material world is really like glyphs, really like icons on your computer screen. You know, like you've got the icon for Google, or you've got the icon for Word, or you have the icon for, you know, music or whatever it is on your desktop. Now you can press that, but that is not what the program is. That's not what it is. It just shows up. And I think that this is saying that, look, really everything that we see around us is, if you like, a symbol on a desktop beneath which is a spiritual reality. I think that we can also talk about the lightning bolts, which are coming from, well, they're related to Jupiter, I think, because that's what Jupiter does. He throws lightning bolts around. The center of the wheel is important, I think. It's got 3 people or things on top of it. One might think of the 3 gunas of Hinduism when one sees that. Yeah. I think what we can say really that this card is doing is that it is saying that you should be ready to act on any unexpected opportunities at the moment. Right? Because there are opportunities coming your way. And it reminds you to go with the flow of life. You know, be the tree that bends. Don't be the tree that tries to go against it. Don't push against the wheel because you might get crushed. Stay in the center, because whichever way the wheel goes, you're going to be okay. Let good fortune come your way. Don't try to hang on to the status quo, but let things change to bring about new things. Now, when times are good, enjoy them, but do not become complacent, because things can change. And when times are challenging, don't be discouraged, because even when things seem their worst, it simply suggests that things can only get better. Keep optimistic and have faith that the divinity will take care of the situation in the best way possible. Now, I think the change is about to happen, and happen soon for you. You may need to alter your present course, or move things in a different direction, or turn things around to ensure that you are creating the right outcomes in your life. But if you struggle against the flow of life, you become like those struggling to climb up the wheel, or even one of those that's crushed beneath it. Because despite the ebb and the flow of the wheel, the center is never going to move or to be shaken. And so despite whatever difficulties are around you, if you stay centered to your truth, then you are going to get through any hardships. Let's see what this has to say. Oh, I love this Queen of Swords. Look, she sits on a throne on top of cumulus clouds with the severed head, right, or a mask, of an old man in her left hand and the sword in her right hand. Now in the card we have the principle of the old, being the severed head, and the young, because there's a little baby cherub's head that's on the top there. And the upper part of her body is naked, but her lower half is covered by a free-flowing sarong. So, who is around? Now, as water, she's... as queen, she's water, and she's in the suit of air. They strengthen each other, water and air. Oh, excuse me, well, I just bashed my head into that. They strengthen each other, water and air, but they are neutral. I think what we can say is that, I tell you what, I'm getting a lot of Libra around here and a lot of Virgo, so I think that Libra and Virgo are likely to be important to you. Yeah, very much so. A lot of Libra and a lot of Virgo. I think what she's all about is making clear decisions based on fact and fairness, right? Which is kind of similar to her herself. Now, there's these things coming up here. These are, I've counted them, there are 15 rays coming out of her crown there. Now, her upper body is naked, so she's not afraid to show her vulnerability. She knows herself and is able to see into others. Now, the sarong, now isn't this what we were talking about before with that Wheel of Fortune? This sarong, I really think, says that she is able to go with the flow in situations. The sword, well, I interpret this as her ability to analyze and cut through old ways of thinking or acting so that she can live in the moment. She is very logical and intelligent. All of this has the advantage of gaining clarity in situations and being able to work through things intellectually to a high standard. She is, I think, very analytical with a razor-sharp ability to get to the heart of the matter, and I think that is going to be you this month. She has enormous clarity and has the intellectual ability to judge and discern impartially without the influence of strong emotions or sentimentality. Now, she's very different to the Queen of Cups in this sense. The Queen of Cups, of course, is not with you. It may be with you at another month, but at the moment, I think that you'll be connecting to other people through an intellectual understanding rather than through an emotional understanding. Now, that severed head that I referred to there, I think that refers to old ideas and habits that are kind of becoming detached and being cut away from your present life so that you can gain clarity in the moment. The throne, the cloud of air, intellect is her main form of communication. This little cherub, as I mentioned here before, well, I think that's about seeing things fresh and without prejudice. This crystal helmet that she's got on here is about clarity of vision. And the clear blue sky, which is behind her as well, I really see that as being an indicator of clarity of mind and spirit. So I think for you what this is saying is that you need to use your unbiased intellect in order to make a decision of a particular situation, drawing upon the facts that go with it from your experience. Empathy or compassion towards others may distract you from making the correct choice, so it's important that you think with your head and not with your heart at this particular time. Don't let your emotions get in the way, but use fact and logic to make your decision. You know, I think you'll actually be quite good at counseling other people during this time. It's also a time when you should not be beating around the bush over a situation. A logical decision is needed, You need to make that decision, and then you need to communicate clearly and concisely. Cut through old patterns holding you back and see things as through the fresh eyes of this child. And it's a time perhaps to dispense with some of the masks in your life and have the courage of your convictions to move forward in a fresh way. I think she's someone who spent time cutting through her masks and now feels liberated as a result. Finally, oh wow, let's have a look at this. Well, there really isn't a card that's got more esoteric imagery in it than this, and I'm not going to be able to go through all of it because time will prevent us. But what I will say is that, just to start with, first of all, here is the symbol for air. And this is another one of those biblical Hebrew letters, this one being Aleph. Now, Aleph is silent. It means breath in the ancient Hebrew. It means breath. But it's only sounded when it's put together with another letter. So there's a lot about air here. Now, the Fool itself is androgynous, and it represents you before you came into matter. It's neither male nor female. It wasn't at that stage. You weren't either. The Fool is, if you like Adam or Eve in the Garden of Eden, before in the place that they were before they left the Garden of Eden and then came into matter, where Adam had to till the soil and Eve to give childbirth in pain and suffering. That's the thing here. Now, the interesting thing here is it's also marked out as being zero. That is, the Fool is about to engage upon the journey through all the major arcana cards, and he's going to carry with him this big sack of coins that's on his back with him. And this sack of coins has all the signs of the zodiac in it. Now, I'm going to refer to him as a man for convenience sake, right? Now, the green man, the mysterious energy giving birth to new life in the spring. New life represents being reborn into your spiritual path. Now, he's making a leap, as you can see. This is a leap into the world, and he does so with enthusiasm. It's a yes to life, and it's the beginning of the connection to spirit, even though he might only have an intuition of it at this stage. He's got a diamond crown here, and that is representing his connection to the divinity. The background is yellow with white diamonds. Yellow is the color of air, and the diamonds also refer to the divinity. The Fool's skin is yellow, representing air. The green clothing represents creativity. These gold shoes, they're the color of the sun and the creative light of life. Now, the sun rules a very, very auspicious element in mystical tradition prior to the emergence of space and time, which might well be metaphorically associated with Lord Krishna and with Christ consciousness. The sun over his genitals here shows the creative potential of the genitals, where human consciousness actually resides in the minds of many mystics. Now, this needs to be raised to the purity of this crown that is part of his journey. Now, you might be saying that what are these three things wrapping around him here? Well, they are known mystically as the three veils of negative existence that reside, for want of a better word, between space and time and where the spiritual realms are. Because spiritual realms are outside of space and time. Although they come into it, they do interact with it, there's no doubt about that, but they originate from outside of it. And they form an umbilical cord to his heart chakra, linking him with spirit. Now, I think what this says is that the spiritual path is ultimately one of the heart and expressing universal love. The soul is said to reside in the heart chakra. Now, here we have a dove, a vulture, butterfly, and there's caduceus here. Well, the dove is the descent of spirit into matter as it heads towards the fool's heart. Now, you will probably recall, if you know your Christian literature, there's a book called the Gospel According to Matthew. In chapter 3, verses, I think, 16 and 17. Anyway, where John the Baptist baptizes the Jesus figure, the heavens open and the Spirit of God in the form of a dove comes down and sits on Jesus, and then it said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Now, the vulture represents the Egyptian mother goddess Mut, meaning mother. She was the creator of all things. You see, the other interesting thing is, and it's also, see, the vulture and this crocodile here have got the same sort of meaning for me. People didn't know and couldn't tell whether vultures and crocodiles were male or female. And so they couldn't tell, and they never saw them mating. All they knew is that there became life from a crocodile or from a vulture. And so it's about the spontaneous creation of life, almost like life out of nothing. And that's the symbology of those things. The butterfly here represents air, or the soul entering the body of the fool as he takes up his spiritual quest. Now, the job of the butterfly is to transform, and likewise this is also the quest of the fool. Look, there's lots of other things that I could say, but I won't go on about it. Maybe another time I'll do it really is worth a video on itself. But I think that what we're saying is that this is about new beginnings, and it's encouraging you to open to the possibility of new adventures, experiences, and embrace them without fear. Embrace the unknown without letting the past affect you, discovering a new sense of fulfillment in the present. It's therefore a great time for personal growth through a newfound openness. And it reminds you to go to your childhood innocence. There's two little children there, and to look at life as a child once does. And you can be very creative at the moment. This is about you deepening and touching that silent, that aleph, that silent part within you, and drawing strength from it. And you need to forget about what society expects of you, as this is simply a restriction in the way that you want to live your life. Well, that's the way it is for you this month. Well, you were fantastic in that reading, as you always are. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did providing it to you. Do you know, I love doing these readings for you, and I'm glad that you get so much out of it. Now, make sure to check out the description if you'd like to have a personal reading, and just let me say this. You are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. But until then, it's bye for now.